Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from the network of FlintTalkRadio.com. I'm George Moss, the host of the program that comes on Mondays at 2 o'clock called What's Going On. And we have a special program we are doing this afternoon coming to you on Saturday at 4 o'clock. And you, of course, can tune the program in anytime at your leisure. We are very happy to have in the studio this afternoon two gentlemen who I think are both outstanding, doing some great work in the community. We have with us to my far right Mr. David Walker, who has a very famous name. As all of you historians out there know, that David Walker was one of the persons that wrote the four narratives back in 1829 called David Walker's Appeal. And he has that name, so he has a lot to live up to. And we're very glad to have Mr. David Walker, the one that's present today from CUFI, and that's the Christians United for Israel, and do a lot of work on the college campuses throughout the United States. We're very glad to have you this afternoon, Mr. Walker.
Glad to be here.
And the person that we had once before in the studio, and I was very honored to have him as a guest on the program that we did also. It was a special program here on FlintTalkRadio.com, and that's Mr. Darwin Jiles, who's from the Flint Urban Culture. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming in and looking forward to a very spirited conversation.
Oh, thank you, and I definitely want to thank all of the listeners and supporters, those who share and upload our videos onto YouTube, and those who support Flint Urban Culture. I just would like to say that you can look up more of our information on flintuc.org. This is all via Facebook, flintuc.org. I'm really honored to have a good brother here, David Walker, who's also, I would say, even outside of what we do as far as community activism and just standing for the kingdom causes that we're so passionate about. This is just starting out in the intro. This is just how me and this good brother of mine met. It was actually through a good friend of ours, his name is Shane Pringle. I believe we met for the very first time at his wedding reception, wasn't it?
That's right.
And I mean, since then, because he actually has a double major degree from Detroit Mercy and poli-sci in finance, and so just automatically we were just kind of bonded together due to our likeness and our interest. And I thought it was just going to be on something financial, but me and his brother has stuck together through thick and thin from day one. And so I just like to get him to start off and just what he kind of just see from how we met from the very first beginning until now, just what he's seen with Flint Urban Culture, just how he's seen me evolve and go through, and because he's definitely someone that has firsthand testimony of who I am, my character, and just really what I stand for. So I'm definitely give him the floor before he knock us out with Christians United for Israel.
Well, listen, I want to thank Mr. Moss and Darwin for having me here this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here on the program. Darwin and I met a couple years ago, and it's funny how I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that God brings certain people into your life to teach you, and also certain people to assist you in your mission and in your destiny. And so Darwin and I met at a wedding rehearsal dinner of a good friend of ours, and right away we clicked. We had some shared interest in finance and our background. But the more I got to know Darwin, I got to see his passion, not only his passion for God, but his passion for purpose. So many young people are just wandering through life, no direction, no passion. But Darwin was different. He was a man that had strong conviction. He had strong conviction in what he believed. He stood his ground. Me and him have butted heads a bunch of times on different issues. But, I heard somebody say that you are an average of 5 of your best friends in your life. And, you want people in your life that can raise your average. The people that are bringing your average down, you kind of want to let them go to the wayside. But you want people that can challenge you. As the Bible says, iron sharpeneth iron. And I count Darwin to be a great gentleman. I know God is using him in a mighty way to really reach the community, to really be a strong advocate, not only for the kingdom, but also, in the political arena. And so I respect him a lot, the work that he's doing through Flint Urban Culture. I think he's doing something that is unprecedented, that has not been done before. And he's just a strong young man with a great vision. And I think he's going to impact the community. I know he's already impacting Flint in a mighty way. And I know he would definitely go on to do great things in the near future. So
Definitely, and if there's anyone that I look at myself and I would say, who would I possibly say if I was not here to clone myself, and even I would say to support 100% and follow, I look at David Walker as being someone, hands down, that is consistent and will stand for what is right for the long haul. And so I definitely appreciate all those words. I know that's from the heart, because, yeah, we definitely... individuals who really support one another, and I'm really proud of what he's doing for Christians United for Israel. I want to dive right in. Just start it off, since I'm not the expert, he's the expert today, and I'm just want to let him kind of dive in. But I've done some research myself, and being that my background with Flint Urban Culture, we focus on ethos change, really culture change, bringing morality back into the community, challenging political status quo leaders, even exposing individuals who keep the environment toxic for the glory of God and for correction, because we all know God loves those he corrects. And so basically, I'd like to get started. My background with my family background, my grandfather was an outstanding member of Falls Avenue Baptist Church on the north side of Flint. And actually, my wife currently she was a member, for an outstanding member of Grace Emmanuel on the south side of Flint. So I want to kind of tap into a lot of the black churches in Flint and the things that I feel has not been taught appropriately or have not been really promoted. And one of those things is the connection of the Bible, Israel, and just Jerusalem in and of itself. And just the biblical significance and duty we have to actually support Israel, and actually the negative consequences if we don't, how it will empower our enemies, and I'm going to go into detail with that, but I do have some outstanding research, and I just want to start with this statement. Some 80% of the Bible, and especially the Torah, the Old Testament, was actually written by Hebrews, and actually it was in Hebrews. And also, though you could go to God being a Gentile, more importantly, you had to come to the Lord and to God, which would be the God of Israel. So a lot of times, if you try to support any type of movement that claims to be Christian or for the kingdom of God, if they are not for Israel, they are not of the Bible, they are not of the God of Israel. Therefore, you cannot and should not stand, being that they are for Christ, because that would be clearly the opposite of what Jesus was even about. And I would like to start with a statement that the Lord actually said in the Bible, which is simply stated this, that we should actually, as Christians and as believers, go after the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And actually, he even said to the Samaritan woman that salvation is even of the Jews. And you find that in John 4, verse 23. And also would like to state with just some other principled things, and as we go on throughout the interview, I would like to have David kind of just dive in, and I just wanted to lay that down as a foundation, because there's some key things that even the Apostle Paul came and wanted to remind us of concerning Israel, and I'm really listening right now with open ears and even open heart, even though I'm within an interview. So definitely going to give you the stage for that.
Well, thank you, Darwin. I want to start off with Isaiah 62:1. This is something that Christians United for Israel, this is one of our founding scriptures. And it says, "For Zion's sake I will not keep silent. For Jerusalem's sake I will not remain quiet. Till her righteousness shines out like the dawn, her salvation like a blazing torch." And that's Isaiah 62:1. For those of you who do not know, Christians United for Israel is the largest grassroots pro-Israel organization in the United States. Started in 2006, and in the past 8 years, our growth has been phenomenal. We currently have surpassed just over 1 million members. We have members throughout all 50 states of the United States and Canada. And it says something about just Christians understanding the need to support Israel. Currently, we look through the newspapers, we turn on the television, and we see the turmoil and the upheaval that's happening in the Middle East. Now more than ever, it is our responsibility and an urgent need for Christians to really rise up and support the United States' #1 ally in the Middle East, and that is Israel. And so the capacity that I work with KUFI, I work in our campus division. I'll tell you a little bit about what I do on a day-to-day basis. Basically, in a nutshell, I work to inspire young people to stand up for Israel. Currently, when I talk around, when I go around, I speak to campuses and I speak to congregations. We talk about what is the largest generation in America right now. Some people say the baby boomers. Some people say other generations. Well, believe it or not, the millennial generation is the largest generation in America. And that's just Darwin, that's you and I generation. That's
Correct.
our generation. Those are those folks that are born between 1980 and about 2003. There are about 95 million millennials in the United States right now. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about the urgency when reaching the next generation for Israel. You go on any college campus in the United States and you'll find students are very, their knowledge base in supporting Israel or concerning Israel in the Middle East is very limited. And so for years upon years, the United States has been a staunch ally and supporter of Israel. If we do not continue to reach back to the next generation and to train them and to educate them on the basis of supporting Israel, then continued support for Israel will be in jeopardy for years to come. And so that really is my mission, and that's really my passion, is really inspiring other people, and especially young people, to stand up and support Israel. Now, the great thing about our organization is that we have a biblical foundation. We understand that it was, God's idea for Israel. This was not something the United Nations came up with. This is not something that Prime Minister Netanyahu came up with. This is something that originated with God. And then what was so encouraging, I don't know if you guys have been watching the Bible series that just came on the History Channel this past weekend. It came on the History Channel last Sunday night, and it was probably, I believe it was recorded as the highest viewed cable television show this year.
Really?
Correct.
And so people are continually turning. I believe it's a 10-week.
Good sign.
10-week, I think, special or something like that. But what's interesting last week is that it started off, of course, in Genesis, and it started off with God telling Abraham to go to a land that I will give you. Go to a place. And Abraham was very, he wasn't sure. He was very unsure of himself, very unsure about going to this land. He was talking to Sarah, and she was kind of unsure. But God, he really impressed in Abraham to trust in him. The theme, the thread that was constantly, woven through that scene was to trust in God. And so we at Christian United for Israel believe that, it was God who, specified Israel for the Jewish people. He said in Genesis 12:3, I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And so we believe that, there's a biblical foundation, there's a biblical narrative, and tons of biblical evidence to support the nation of Israel. We see that if you go back, throughout history, there's a continued Jewish presence in history, for years upon years upon years. And so we are here to really show Christians and remind Christians about our responsibility to stand with Israel and to support them, even during the trying times that they're facing right now.
And it's a good thing you brung up because, and just to make sure, I want to make sure when you have individuals from Flint listening to this actual interview, I'm going to name a few churches, I'm going to name individuals because I want us to have a bigger picture. I want when you're sitting down in your congregations, I want you to say, have you ever heard about this? Have your spiritual leadership even informed you of this? Because it's all about education. We're not doing this to be malicious. We're doing this to really get the truth out in the body of Christ. And so as I previously stated, my background from a family perspective, lineage perspective, has been heavily rooted with Falls Avenue Baptist Church. My grandfather was buried there. My grandmother Winfrey is still there, who's fastly approaching 100 years old. And my thing is, in all these congregations that are very well known, we have an obligation to support Israel, and not only just support Israel, but make sure that our children and our families are understanding the biblical significance. And as my good brother just brung up, Genesis 12:1-3, there's actually an Abrahamic covenant, land covenant, actually concerning Israel and just concerning Jerusalem. So there's many since Adam. Basically, until now, every covenant that God has ever made has all been with Israelites. It has all been with those chosen people of Israel. And not only that, but in order for this to come to pass, you have to understand there's many covenant principles and things like that has not been answered throughout the Bible. And you see that again in Genesis 1-3. Those things are even prophesied in Daniel 9-19. And there's a lot of different other biblical significance. So I want to make sure and urge everyone to not just go to church, not just sit down and just be a churchgoer. Understand you're a part of the kingdom of God, and more importantly, you're a part of a body of Christ that needs to be informed. And so I'm also going to bring up, and before I even go any further, I just want to send my condolences out to the Broadway family. My father-in-law just recently passed, and I want to make sure before I address even the great man of God that is over, Grace Emmanuel, I want to make sure all of these churches that teach and do these things are making sure we're really informed about Israel and about the spiritual significance of these things, because one thing for sure, if we're not teaching the things that Jesus wanted us concerned about, the body is going to remain crippled. It's going to remain in a state in which they will not be able to fully inform and pass down truth, as David said, to next generations. And so just within, let's see, a few notes, and I'm going to go on and see if Mr. Moss has anything to say. I see he's writing pretty much over here. I have a few notes, but I want to first let you get in and see if you have anything personally to say.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Dave, I'm really interested in your organization, and I was going to ask you about, am I correct in assuming that it is your affiliation that starts in 2006, or is that when the organization itself got started?
The organization started in 2006.
2006.
And so KUFI on campus, subsidiary of KUFI, it happened about 3 years after that. It started, rather, about 3 years after that, when our executive board understood that, hey, it's great that we're able to, gather pastors together and gather churches, because in our organization we have pastors and churches from various denominations.
Correct.
All different non-denominational churches have come under one umbrella to support Israel united in the united front. And so they understood that if we're going to continue this movement with gathering Christians together, that we've got to reach the next generation. And so that's how KUFI on campus.
Yes, the reason I ask that question is because I think that what we're seeing right now is some of the cracks in their support. So I was wondering if there was anything that would have triggered the reason for the organization to be formed in 2006, that you see something that was going on that would have triggered the need to begin to stand up more forcefully.
I think what happened was
Israel.
It was interesting. During that time, we had a president that was very pro-Israel. And so there wasn't a lot going on with, the threat against Israel. It wasn't as great as it is today. But our founder, Pastor Hagee, he just felt an urgency to start the organization in 2006. And thank God he did, because shortly after that, the rhetoric, the anti-rhetoric and the anti-Semitism regarding Israel just grew enormously. And so I think that, part of being a great leader is being able to hear from God and allow God to direct your steps. And so I think God just led him to start the organization in 2006, not knowing what was going to happen down the road, not knowing that we're going to have administrations that were going to distance themselves a little bit from Israel, and also leaders of, nations in Israel that will openly declare destruction against Israel. So.
And it's a great thing that you brought it up about strategic alignment and different purposes for things when things were started, because I just recently wrote a publishing about Bobby Shostak, who is now the chairman of Michigan, the Republican Party, and he's Jewish. Yeah. And, I had a lot of kickback from a lot of different individuals, because we're talking about grassroots. So I'm going to address the churches in Flint by name. I'm going to address a lot of different political individuals that I know, and just the political I would say, atmosphere right now, and some of the tension that I've been addressing. And one of the things is that they felt as if a lot of the Christian conservatives were going to be put to the side if Bobby Shostak was basically reelected. And of course, we know he raised a lot of money, $26 million for the Republican Party. But there's one thing that you said. We have to understand that God really moves within seasons and timings. We don't really know, but we are to discern the times. Right. And so one of the things that I would like to say just concerning Israel and just the support of these things is that we cannot view, if we have Jewish leadership or anything like that, as being that the Christians are going to be somewhat put on the back burner. We have to understand that the Jewish leaders are really allies with us.
Absolutely.
In fact, Paul wrote in Romans 15:27, he clearly said that not only are we to not forget Israel, but we're also to remember that our spiritual inheritance comes from Israel, and that we actually have an actual duty to help them with earthly matters.
Absolutely.
And so that is really important that we understand that. And so I like to make sure, because for some reason when you talk about Israel, Jerusalem, and you talk about these things, unfortunately within the black churches it has been completely like it's separate, like that don't apply to us. And I'm like, listen, for all you Jesus loving people out there, okay, from again the False Avenues, the Grace Emmanuels, the Word of Lights, all these different ministries that are coming up, you're well known throughout Flint. It's our job to make sure that we are bringing the truth concerning Israel and just our support, because if not, what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of those anti-Jewish individuals, right, promoting and even recruiting, even by way of Islam. We're not hate mongers. Mm-hmm. But one thing I do know for sure, Islam is not going to help Flint. Islam is not going to help any urban community. In fact, when you actually research the history behind and even the statistics when you do this, and even from just my experience throughout the urban community, a lot of drugs have actually been pumped into these areas directly from the poppy plant, coming from these areas that are pro-Islamic and are heavy within that type of drug trade. And so with us not really understanding that, the culture has even spilled over into the jails. You know, you find troubled inner city youth who grew up Christian, but they go to jail. Let's say they get into a juvenile issue and they come out saying that they're Islamic now and they're for Muslims, and now they're anti-Jewish, they're anti-Israel. But of course, this is anti-godliness. If you love Jesus, you have to love the God of Israel, and that's exactly what Jesus Christ was about, making sure we all could be reconciled into the body, even those that are non-Gentile.
I just want to piggyback on what you said. It's something that we're finding out on our college campuses across the nation is that, you know, right along with that atheist and agnostic viewpoint that is coming not only from students, but it's really coming from stakeholders in the university. I'm talking about professors, scholarly authors, those that have really influence on college campuses, right in with that agnostic and atheist viewpoints that they're, you know, preaching from their pulpit of the classroom. They're also thrown in there to be anti-Israel. You know, yes. Anti-Semitism.
Yeah, you know? I want to ask you about that. You know, the thing that really has surprised me is the fact that there is that fracture that has occurred between the black community, for example, and the Jewish community. The Jews are right there in the midst of the civil rights movement.
They were. They actually helped us very, very much
side by side
throughout the civil rights movement.
Fundamental to a success. And the book that is out that's raising a question about this fracture that occurred in the aftermath of King's death is what went wrong, you know, and what do you think went wrong? Because they were, as you just acknowledged, that they were centered around the advancement of the black community going back to the 30s. When Hitler ran the Jews out of Germany, they went to the black college campuses during the time that they were closed off from the larger society. They went there and were classroom teachers on these black college campuses and were fundamental to the rising of the black community around the civil rights drama that occurred in the 50s and the 60s up to 68. And then, of course, you started seeing something else occurring. So you have any have you come in any discussions in your group about what would have occurred to turn that relationship on its head, so to speak?
I think there's so many similarities between the black and the Jewish communities, so many parallels. I think what has happened is the lack of education. I think people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. I think people just don't understand, and they don't have that knowledge of Jewish people and black people marching together in the 60s, you know, sharing the same plight, you know, having the same struggles. Somehow that history is not being told. You know, our generation is not familiar with that story. And so that's a big problem. That's a big part of the problem, is the lack of education, the lack of insight, you know, which has caused us to be, in some cases, enemies. You know, we really are cut from a very, very similar fabric.
And it's great what you're saying, David, because one thing that I've really noticed personally is that, and I was just thinking about this even before we had the show, just how the liberal government and their agenda has gotten so deep within the urban community. It's washed out partially of what the Bible is even about, what Jesus Christ really stood for. And for generations, they've teach partial doctrines. They don't teach of the spiritual significance of Israel. In fact, I was just invited, it was a speaking engagement I went to from a good friend of mine, and I was actually speaking to her just on the side about Israel. And she almost started to say things like, well, why would God choose Israel? And why would they? Now, this is a young lady that is pretty much big within her denominational church and what she's doing. She's an influential leader. But that is part of the reason we've gotten so left that we don't understand that what the Bible was really founded on. And this is one of the reasons why in 1947 that the United Nations and really America backing Israel came about, because of the spiritual and biblical significance. Right. Remember, our founding fathers were biblical and God-fearing. Yes. America was birthed out of Judeo-Christian principles. So they realized the spiritual significance of Israel. Okay, they also understood that if we did not back Israel, that we were not continuing in the way that of the God that prospered us, that helped us form what we form now and as today, and unfortunately are in such a season of defending those freedoms and those rights and what we know as the truth.
The other problem is that nobody is speaking that truth. You know, if nobody's speaking the truth, then nobody can hear the truth.
Correct.
All right, and so we need more people that are going to be vocal and are going to be bold enough to speak truth, so people can be informed, so people can understand. One of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is John 4:22, and it says that salvation is of the Jews. It is Jesus speaking. And so we need to understand that as Christians, you know, our salvation came, all right, from Jewish men in the Bible. We're talking about all the apostles, you know, the disciples, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the first family of Christianity.
Preaching, my brother.
Jesus, Mary, Joseph, all these are Jewish figures. You know?
Correct.
And so we need to really understand and really connect the dots, you know? But if nobody is speaking truth, then nobody will be able to hear and recognize the truth.
David, I'm on the college campus, and when I saw your card saying that you were Kufi on campus, I, being a part of the campus and knowing a little bit about how the mindset operates inside that circle.
Yes, sir.
I can imagine some of the kinds of oppositional things you're facing from the staff level, because I know there's a very left oriented. I will share this real quickly with you, and that is I went to a George Soros funded telecommunication network set up on the college campuses. It was on our campus here in Flint, and a lot of other campuses around the country, featuring people like Francis Fox Piven and Cornel West, which will give you some pause about what that would be about.
Sure.
And when the film was over, when they got through talking on the telecommunication network about what they wanted to deliver, we had a question and answer period. They asked for the professors, they had raised their hand if they had a comment, and I raised my hand. And I said that I have never heard so much nonsense in my life, and what did I want to say that for in that environment? Boy, the whole room turned. And one lady came down, she was a student over here at one of the junior colleges. And she came down. She said, "You know, you have to have a lot of courage to be in this room here, because that's the mindset that you run into." So I know that it'll be different among the staff members, which I think is mostly Marxist oriented on these college campuses. But what have you noticed about the difference between the reception of your message at the college level in terms of the professors and that of the student? Have you noticed any real big?
We like to say in Kufi that our college students are on the front lines of the battlefield, meaning that when you try to advocate on behalf of Israel on the college campuses, it is such a challenge. You know, we get a challenge from the administration, a challenge from, professors. I've had cases where they have not wanted to approve our events. You know, I remember one event we had a Holocaust survivor coming in. They defaced our posters. They
being who?
We don't know who. Just somebody defaced our posters. Somebody tore down our advertisement, really trying to block the pro-Israel message from going out. We've had students that, in the classroom, would try to, challenge professors on history, on, Israeli history, documented history. And professors would try to intimidate students, and try to, try to kind of muscle students to being quiet, try to muzzle the message from going forth. And so this is something that we face all the time. But I will say this, that we have some of the most impressive students on our college campuses across the nation. Kufan campus, we have over 100 chapters where students are actively advocating on behalf of Israel and hosting events in the midst of the opposition, in the midst of a lot of the resistance. They are working and they are diligent in getting the message out. They have conviction in what we believe and what we stand for, and that really causes them to persevere in the midst of the opposition that they face.
100 college campuses?
We have over 100 chapters, and so we're on over 100 college campuses across the nation. Yes, sir.
Okay, very impressive.
And
go ahead, Darwin.
I would like to say as well, David and I, because actually, when you hear of our credentials and different things that we've achieved at our young age, he's actually from Detroit.
Well, actually, I'm from Atlanta.
Well, from Atlanta, but he's been raised in Detroit.
Yes,
and those are two areas where right now we're developing even a movement down within Atlanta. With me being from Flint, we are actually developing a group of young men. I've been talking to him about it briefly, and really developing a coalition of young men that actually can stand on the front lines more and teach this and actually stand for the principles. And we have several things we're going to do. One of the main things that I've talked to him about previously is developing a pro-Israeli gun club. Now, we've had some serious public safety issues throughout Flint, a lot of other urban areas. And I have to be honest, and I have to say something that when done properly and when done accordingly to safety precautions and procedures, one thing that is really lacking throughout these urban communities and what's really have had public safety lack is the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the cure really for our public safety issues that we're having. Having well-trained militias that can be able to work in accordance to police and preventing crime and also preventing any type of the criminal activity that you would normally not have if you did not have well-trained ex-military, ex-police, ex-law enforcement, just on all different levels, being able to put together. And so we have several different things that I've actually started to work on and envision and write out, which is an actual organization that is going to help put together groups and individuals that are concerned about our children, and our kids. Because why should our children, I think I've been driving through Flint early in the morning before schools and things like that, and you have children catching a bus by themselves. I mean, and you wonder if something was to happen, what would happen? I mean, you have so many different problems where, and I'm not saying that, because the first thing people would think is, oh, well, that would probably be unsafe. And no, but we have to understand if we don't have a more of a leadership approach to our community and individuals that want and care about policing our community, that we just hiring police alone won't do it. The problem is that we're not policing our own communities. And one of the things that I want to do is help teach safety and also gun rights and gun advocacy throughout the Pro-Israeli Gun Club. That will be based on a pro-Israeli public traded company, which is Magnum Designs. And it's basically based after the 50 caliber handgun. And so we have these initiatives and these ideas. So if you are interested in ever trying to fund any of our initiatives, contact me on Facebook, at any of our websites. Make sure you reach out to us, even at Flint Urban Culture at hotmail.com, to make sure that if you're interested in any of these things, that we're directly putting the plans together. We have the grassroots connections now, and we have the presence to just make these things happen. And that's one thing. We're having a lack of diversity throughout the urban community. We're having a lack of awareness of where our rights come from, the Bible, and these type of things. You don't have the government or even the governmental leaders choosing alternatives that would be within our favor. If we could develop enough leaders to police our own communities and to actually be concerned in making sure this is done in a safe way, why do we have to continue to raise taxes to have a tax millage to bring in more police? I mean, I understand that is an issue. We have to do what we have to do, but this is happening after we have dozens and dozens and hundreds of deaths already. And so I really want to make sure we understand that is part of one of the main things that we are lacking, is really understanding the true significance and importance of the Second Amendment right. I mean, we have women and children feeling like they don't have any safety, anything within the city, and that's just ridiculous when we can actually stand up and create these type of alliances with the police and authorities and be able to do this to help get our neighborhoods back safe again.
That sounds like a lot of things we once had in our community. You know, I can remember when we had guns were part of our households. A lot of people go out hunting as a way of adding to their food supply. You know, hunt on the weekend, had dogs in the backyard, and these were hunting dogs. And they go out there possum hunting, you know, and this is the way that they live. Guns were a part of our household. Right. Star Parker makes this point, and that was that the idea of gun control was an anti-black measure in terms of taking guns out of the hands of blacks in the South.
Correct.
And making them more vulnerable. So it's hard for me to understand how the black community could be in the forefront of any rejection of the Second Amendment.
Correct.
In terms of not standing up for that.
When the NRA and other things were actually created to protect slaves and different things like that. And I mean, even when it comes to property and even being able to get land in the hands of black leaders in the black community, Jewish individuals played a very key role of significance in doing that. They were not racist in the sense of not wanting to make sure that houses could be sold within the black community, because they actually owned a lot of the property as well, and help get that really transition into black families, you know, into you know, just to make sure that happened. And so those are things that we've forgotten just historically.
Do the two of you think that Biden's comment about how women should defend themselves, which was to in fact what do you call it when you're messing on yourself and spoiling yourself, I guess they use that word, that women would in fact spoil themselves, spoil their clothes, so as to be a deterrent, throw up on the person. These kinds of silly. Did you?
I think I may have. Well, first of all, I don't care for Biden. I don't think any intelligent person should listen to him or any several other leaders.
I mean, that was an insult.
I'm not familiar with the comment. I didn't hear what he said.
So
that's to soil their clothes.
It doesn't sound so good.
It doesn't. It doesn't sound
like he probably said that.
Correct. And so, but
a Joe Biden moment.
Correct. And so, as a result, though, I can say we have some practical marketing material coming forth real soon concerning those type of things, and women, where we actually have women standing up for their Second Amendment right and really understanding that they don't need a whistleblower. Okay, they have protection, which would be their right to bear arms, to make sure that they're not being raped and they are being, you know, protected accordingly. And so all of that is left-wing propaganda. They say these things, but those are no real ways of protecting yourself.
Yeah, I want to come back to your gun club for Israel, but I want to make this comment about the gentleman in Milwaukee, the person that's over the police department there, who was telling the citizens, we need you to, in fact, cooperate and work with us, because we can't be there immediately to your situation, your crisis. We've got to have you being able to defend yourself until we arrive on the scene.
Correct.
And of course, you know, Piers Morgan had to get involved in that, bring him on the show and try to beat him down. But he was making the same points you're making here. Let me ask you about your gun club for Israel. Now, that's kind of interesting that you would have. Is it named?
It's called the Magnum Club.
The Magnum Club.
But I let it know, in the way I market it is as a pro-Israeli gun club, because we're going to market it directly after the 50 caliber. Oh, this is strength. So this is definitely a power statement. You know, directly. We're going to develop some walls.
So praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
So, you know, a lot of things, and again, in one of my publishings, I just wrote about Bobby Shostak and just Jewish leadership is, for one, in Michigan and the rest of America wouldn't understand this right now. We have Dearborn right in our backyard. And if I'm correct, they're not waving any pro-Israeli flags there. And what we don't understand, by privilege of the Freedom Law Center and Robert Muse, who's a well-known constitutional attorney, and Pamela Guller, who actually, because David and I's exposure is not just local, it's really national, and even thanks to Pamela Guller, is even international now, where I was able to speak at the very first civil rights meeting in respect to one of my good friends, Jessica Mogdad, who was a victim of Islamic honor killing. Her stepfather murdered her in cold blood, shot her right in the head because they felt
this country.
This was right here in Warren. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's interviews for that as well. That's out there, and it actually shows more of the details. But because she was begin to become more westernized and begin to date outside of what different things within the Quran and these things, these books that I consider to be falsehood in their doctrine. And so, but as a result, with Pamela Guller, she has a serious movement right now just concerning jihad and a lot of different things concerning the military Texas shooting. A lot of people don't understand what that was really all about. But there's a lot of material. If you can actually go at Lake Shubs, you can go and look this information up, just really about the movements. We need to connect the dots with the coalitions we have that are uplifting Israel and really promoting those things. But with my club, yeah, definitely it is a statement to be pro-Israeli, and it is to get more African Americans to realize we have a significance, a significant part to play in making sure that that happens.
Let me ask you, David. Let me ask you this question about you were affiliated with the Kufi in 2006. What have you seen in terms of the transition as far as Israel is concerned between 2006 and now 7 years later under this administration in 2013? What kind of shift have you seen in terms of support for Israel during that time under Bush and the transitional things you see going on right now under this administration?
I think what has happened, and I mean, I don't want to call the administration, anti-Israel, but I will say that it's left people to question the sincerity as far as our position in supporting Israel. And I think, when people have to question sincerity, then that's problematic. We want to be a strong ally for Israel. We don't want Israel to have to worry or have to doubt American support. We want to make sure that our support is steadfast and unquestionable. And so I think the intensity of support I would see has changed. I would say that.
The intensity has changed.
Yes, sir. I would think so.
Noticeably so.
Yes, absolutely.
Now they were saying the other side would say that the amount of the aid has not gone down.
Right, the amount of the aid has increased, and so that's a good thing. And so, like I said, some of the signs are there. I wouldn't say that the Obama administration is anti-Israel or has not been a great friend of Israel. I would not say that. I would just say that the intensity has definitely changed. Whereas in previous presidents, they have been staunch and strong, vocal supporters of Israel, and now it's just I guess a different strategy. I would say maybe I don't know.
Well, I was going to say, one thing you have to understand just dealing with President Obama is that he doesn't support the God of Israel, even though this is something that when you look at his roots and where he comes from, and even from a lot of the good Islamic individuals that I know, they all say the same thing. They believe that he's following the seed of his father. Who was very anti-colonialism, who was very pro-Islamic, who really stood for those things. And so when you look at a lot of his policies and what he's standing for, it really shouldn't cause you to question too much, because it's pretty obvious. Even from when he first got in, I know I will never forget the statement of when he announced that America is no longer a Christian nation. I think that is probably one of the most disrespectful things I think I've ever personally heard him say, besides that he support abortion, besides he supports gay marriage. I think those are all disrespectful statements and very, I would say, frowned upon as a so-called U.S. citizen or U.S. president. And I think that overall, when you hear those type of statements, I mean, that should not have you to question where he stands with these type of issues.
You're making a very good point. I had some problems with this president in 2007. Who stood on the steps of the State House in Illinois,
correct,
in Springfield, and announced his candidacy, standing on the steps where Lincoln had given his two nations speech, the nation divided, one slavery and one part not slavery, and to put himself and position himself in that history when his father is not from the United States. His mom is how he got his American citizenship.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with the history he was trying to claim as part of his legacy. And I thought it was kind of like a hijacking, a piloting of our history. But this is the kind of opportunism that I've seen over this president's tenure as president of the United States for these 5 years. So
you have to understand,
I'm not surprised by anything he does.
Yeah, you have to understand, President Obama and Michelle have done really well with tapping into our history, and really, as I put in the previous interview, taking advantage of the Republican failures to merge these gaps first. When I look at anything he's doing, Republicans had a chance to do this way before there was an Obama running for anything. So when we look at a lot of the blows he's dishing out, you almost have to look at ourselves and say, how did we allow this to happen? And now is water under the bridge. Now we have to be aggressive and as proactive as possible with standing for the things that we know that is the truth. But when you look at the fact of how he's integrated within the social culture, and he's been able to really define himself as someone that's really of America. This is how he's gotten an advantage in many cases. I mean, Obama is as foreign as they come. And people don't understand that. He's not African American as David and I. He really is something different. Or even yourself, or anyone that I know.
Yeah, he's very different than any black person on the planet. I don't think anybody has had that kind of a background where you've gone through so many different cultural changes. He's injected himself in Indonesia for a while. He's in Hawaii. How many black folks are there? And then he's got this parentage and grandparentage. It's just a very different kind of upbringing, all of which had some influences on him and caused him to have to necessarily reach out for what does all of this mean. I mean, how do you integrate all these?
Well, I think he's done a great job, and with his education through Harvard, I think he's known how to do it very well, and he's done a great job, I think, with integrating those things throughout his presidency, because what he's done, within the urban community, and this is why I have to go within the local grassroots, from the churches, the governmental leaders. I look at individuals, Woodrow Stanley, Omar Sims. I look at up-and-coming leaders that I hear right now, the David McGee. I look at a lot of different other individuals, and what I see from these individuals is that they're not teaching and preaching the fundamental biblical principles. They're not teaching of the significance of how Christians should support and believers has to support within Jerusalem and support Israel and those type of things. But I say all of that to say this: when you look at individuals like David and I and what we're doing and how we stand firm and consistent, you have these local leaders that they don't. So as a result, Obama understands that most African Americans within our culture, within inner cities, they are very limited. They are very, I hate to say, it's kind of like the wool is over their eyes.
Yeah, the paralysis of analysis.
Correct. And so as a result, he's taken those cultural experiences and he's used them really well to promote himself and to seem as charismatic as he is, and to promote his agenda.
Let me ask you about somebody that is a pro-Israel supporter, Glenn Beck. Have you had any contact, David, with Glenn Beck? I know he's a very strong advocate of
he's a great
Israel.
friend to Kufi, and he's very outspoken. He regarding his support for Israel, and it's definitely mutual respect for Glenn Beck as he has for us. He's been the keynote speaker a couple years ago at our big national summit in D.C., and he's actually going to be the keynote speaker at our national summit this summer.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. 2013.
Well, I liked the organization when I first heard about it. I like it even more now.
Yeah.
I heard Glenn Beck in the mall of the nation's capital on 8/28/2010. I was there with the 500,000 people that were in that mall. I know that NBC said 68,000. That number is ludicrous. They had twice the number that were there. I was in Martin Luther King's. I was there for that event as well as a sophomore at that point. And I can tell you there were twice as many persons in that mall when Glenn Beck was there than when King gave his I Have a Dream speech. They did not want that narrative to get out there. Here was these 96% of whom are white in that park that were now embracing, 47 years after King, embracing that dream and that vision that King had, which shows this country has been healing its racial wounds. And I don't think they want that to get out, that this was to that extent of having embraced what King talked about. But I knew that you would have had some contact or some understanding of Glenn Beck, because I know he's been to Israel and has been very strong and staunch in terms of saying the same things I've heard you say.
Absolutely. And we need more people. We have a number of elected officials that have come and supported our events. And really be taking a strong stand for Israel. But really, what concerns me is the next generation. All these figures that are really outspoken and really forthright about their support for Israel come from your generation. But what's going to happen to Darwin and my generation, for years down the line? Now, where is that vocal support for Israel?
Yes.
Is the next generation really being educated? And not only on Israel, but also where is the next young leadership? Where are the next strong leaders that are not going to be,
Compromisers,
copycats, and what you see on television are actually going to stand for something. Actually going to have integrity and morality. And really, history, because you can't go anywhere without history. You need to know where you've been to know where you're going. And so, and that's my concern. That's what I pray about. Where is the next strong leadership coming from?
I think it was about a month ago, Darwin, when you came in.
Yes.
And I was telling Darwin after the program was over, we did an hour interview.
Yes.
And I was telling Darwin that it's really refreshing to see a young person, and that's standing up and having something that doesn't blow away when the wind blows. You don't get blown away with it.
And somebody that's not an echo. You got so many echoes, but nobody who has an authentic voice. And that's nobody who's an independent thinker.
Yes.
I think that's really the problem with this generation.
The problem, yes, Generation X. I mean, and I think that's pretty much typical of the black community. It's like, you've heard where Stacey Dash came out and said she's going to support Mitt Romney. That's a choice you make in terms of the privacy of your own convictions. That's right. And they thought that she was Benedict Arnold all of a sudden. This is Judas Iscariot. I mean, what is this? Yeah. That you're supposed to all be in lockstep. I have to tell you this. I know it's on QT Running, but I've been disappointed in Bill Cosby, who stood out for a while and came over from an independent point of view. They excoriated him so badly and wrote books about him. One book written by this Michael Eric Dyson, who lives on the plantation and wants everybody else to live on the plantation, wrote a book called "Is Bill Cosby Right, or Has the Black Middle Class Lost His Mind?" Well, Bill Cosby was snatched back from that independent perch, and he's now back over here talking the nonsense that they all are talking about. 95% of us sound the same. If I listen to one black person, it's like I'm talking to the whole, neighborhood kind of thing. So I'm really glad to see young people who have this independence, and I hope we can grow these numbers.
Well, see, the great thing is, you said, it's not just me and David. We actually have a core group of individuals. We're scattered out throughout Michigan, and we could come together, and we're going to do this. We're going to keep making sure the message is being heard. But this is a lot of the points David just brought up about an authentic voice and someone who continues to stand out loud. And I think since the start of Flint Urban Culture, there's been a lot of different urban movements and a lot of different things that's come right afterwards. And I challenge everybody. I call out names because I want people to directly hold people's their feet to the fire and hold them accountable. Because when you're following people just to follow them and you're not holding them accountable for nothing, you're just a fan. You're just in their fan club. They're just building numbers, and they don't have any real genuine movement. The individuals that I work with, from Joanne to Bruce Rice to Bruce Rogers, a lot of different individuals that I work with, Lutillis Penton, who was my mentor, to Stacy Swim, Reverend C. O'Brien, a lot of these individuals. They're actually going to be in June. There's going to be an actual national tour, and it's starting within Flint. So so I'm gonna keep you posted and give out more. I'm gonna play a significant role in that. I've already talked with Stacy Swimp about this, so he's already told me he wants me on board 100%. So there's a lot that's going to go on. It's going to continue to build, and so I just want to let you know that it's going correct, and we're going to continue to grow and do what we do, but we have to hold the individuals in Flint, and I have to make sure individuals know that if you're just following someone, I brought this up in a previous interview about Omar Sims, about how, here it is, you have a lot of failed leaders like the Woodrow Stanleys and individuals like that who hasn't made any significant contributions for morality. They have not supported, pro-life initiatives. They have not, when you look at 50 million babies plus since Roe v. Wade, 2/3 are African American. You look at 5,000 almost a day, and a little over close to 3,000 are black. Okay, these are significant numbers that these so-called leaders should be addressing. Okay, when you look at the attack against family, I've started a pro-family initiative called Covenant Family via Facebook. Make sure you support those things. And so these individuals are not standing up for the sanctity of family and marriage. these individuals are not doing these things. They're not standing for the Second Amendment. They're not standing for these things. So we have to understand, if we want to have a better community, if we want to have even half the success and strength as our ancestors did, even through Jim Crow days, our families were stronger then. We have to hold these failed leaders and then their so-called proteges, and they really are. I mean, in my book, they're really just individuals that they're using as puppets. Okay, if you can run as a Republican, as Omar Sams, and then you can later shove the Republican Party and still claim to be conservative, but you won't stand for not one conservative principle publicly because you're too busy trying to have everybody accept you within a liberal circle. Okay, then you're not a friend of Israel. You're not a friend of the Bible. You're not somebody that's going to stand up for conservative principles and morality. And so as a result, I challenge these guys, and I look and I see up and coming individuals again, as David McGee. I think I met him by accident just recently at a local fundraiser. I really didn't know who he was, but if you're making a difference in Flint, stand for pro-life initiatives, stand for the Bible, stand for supporting Israel, stand for supporting our Jewish brothers and sisters, stand for these things, okay, and stand against entitlement mentality, because these things have crippled us, and none of these leaders are speaking out against the drug culture. All these things play a part because most of the drugs that are pumped into the city help fund terrorism, help fund and very people that we have been enemies against, U.S., Israel, and so many other things. So the truth needs to be known and needs to be vocal. And I will continue through Flint Urban Culture to preach the message. And we have a strong movement, and I mean, it's growing by the day now. And we're going to continue to stand for the things that we are to stand for.
How difficult is it for you, the two of you, to stand up on what you are standing up on, given I know it's a minority position? So how difficult do you find it to stand in so much opposition that you have to stand in the gap to
I think you just have to
oppose?
You have to make a decision as an individual. Are you going to be true to yourself? You can live for somebody else, but there's always going to be somebody who's, you can't please everybody. So you might as well just please God. There's going to be always somebody who's going to feel like you didn't do good enough, or you're on the wrong side of the issue. So you might as well, stand for what you know is true. All right, what resonates with your heart and with your purpose in life. That's what you stand for. And it's going to be tough. It's not easy,
And I look at the great connection between Flint Urban Cultures, Israel's, and one of my slogans is that we have Israeli strength. Flint Urban Culture is taking some hits. I mean, it's like we're next to Iran in Flint, all right? All right? We've taken some serious hits. If you've seen my name persecuted on Facebook, then you know I've taken some hits. Okay, but I mean, when those things, as David said, is far from the truth, I mean, all my family and friends love me, those who have been there for me in the past. They're for me now. Right. And when I look at how God will bring the right people in your life, he will continue to grow those who you need even more. And so as a result, I haven't been moved. In fact, I've been made stronger, because one thing for sure, the opposition, they're not genuine. The opposition aren't anointed. They're not even biblically rooted. They're not biblically grounded. So how can they really stand against me? I mean, I'm like David. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine coming against the Most High army of God? I mean, I'm ready to take the Goliaths out, and I've done that time after time. And I think that they understand the passion and the conviction, and that I'm not going to hold my opposition up. So, my thing is, it's not a fair fight, because God is on my side. So you got to choose wisely if you think you want to make yourself an opposition to me, because I know for a fact, David and I both have been prepared for what we're doing now. So it really has been a breeze. And I think what's been interesting is seeing our enemies fold, and seeing individuals, how God has really made a way and pathway. And when God is for you, who cares who can come against you?
That I know Darwin's testimony pretty well about how he got here where he is right now. David, how did you? We all were in an unconscious state at some point. We didn't grow up with this understanding of things. So, what was your path to the present? How did you get to where you are right now?
In a nutshell, because I know we're short on time, I would just say really is a series of the Lord just opening one door after another. I think I grew up in the inner city, but I grew up in a Israel Christian home. Grew up in the church and just was exposed, had the opportunity to be exposed to a lot at an early age. And I think having the right people in your life at the right times can really make a difference. And recognizing when a door is a God ordained door, and really having enough sense to say, hey, God is trying to do something with my life. God is trying to direct my steps here. And just being humble enough to listen and submit myself to God's will.
Do either one of you see yourself being involved in the political arena to the point where you're running for elective office, or you don't see that as part of?
Well,
I see that for Darwin, absolutely.
Well, David always says that about me, but my thing is, I'm free from political gain. Whatever I have, in fact, again, I go back to my Bible Show Stack Publishing. I basically said that we are the ambassadors of Christ. I'm not waiting on government. Government is waiting on us. True believers who are true salt and light in the earth. And so I'm taking my authority in Jesus Christ. And as a result, I'm gaining measures, and as a result, unless the Lord line it up, no, I won't be running for a public office because I'm already in a elected and chosen position.
And I would say this, everybody wants to run for office, but office is not the only place to have influence. Like, you don't have to be an elected official to have influence in the community.
Okay.
And I think if we have more people that understood that they have the opportunity to have influence just by being a strong individual, just by standing for truth and not compromising, then maybe we'll have more.
But see, when you look at the failed legacies of the Kwame Kilpatricks, the Woodrow Stanleys, and these individuals, I mean, everything that they've done has been for political gain. So that's all the younger generation knows. And you look at another young brother of mine, I still consider him a brother in spite of his vicious attacks against me, who was used by the Democratic Party as a puppet, put in as a city councilman. He was one of the youngest city council members, and he was forced to quit. He couldn't handle the pressures, but he was not called and elected for that position up front. He was brung in maliciously to blackball a good friend, Dora Buchanan of mine. So when you look at these type of things happening, it's the bad legacy and the failed leaders that are leaving these bad legacies for the younger generation. So it's up to God to raise up the Davids and the Darwins and the Bruces and the Georges and everybody else to help reverse that curse and reverse the negative legacy that's been left behind. So, we don't do anything for any personal gain. We're doing this because we would be doing this whether we got any notice. If there was no Facebook, right. If there was nothing, we'd be standing somewhere with posters and signs. Right. So, I mean, that's what we're about. We're genuine. We stand for what's right, and we're building an army, and we're doing it for the kingdom of God, for the glory of God.
Well, you definitely are standing up, and I admire both of you for being the leaders that you are, and you're going to definitely have an impact upon things for many years to come. Keep up the good work, and want to thank you again for coming in.
My pleasure.
Mr. David Walker, the person carrying the name of the great pioneer in the 19th century.
Yes, sir.
And Darwin, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an excellent job out there in the community with the Flint Urban Culture, and we want to commend both of you again for coming into the studio here at flinttalkradio.com. Okay. For our next program here at flinttalkradio.com. Until that time comes, we want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.